If you don't want to be recorded, that's fine. Just keep your camera off. But we're happy to be here. Happy to see everyone here in attendance, and we got a good program for everyone tonight. And just happy to see how this next election is going to turn out, and see everyone's readiness for the election, as well as just to check in and have those informed conversations about elections, why they're important, and what we all have to do to make sure we have an informed election plan. So again, welcome everyone. Happy to see everyone here. And with that, I just again want to remind everybody the call is being recorded, and I'm going to briefly go over our agenda for tonight. Move this.
And Jay, maybe before we get into it, if folks want to like introduce themselves in the chat, say where you're zooming in from, please feel free to say hi. Give each other a holla in the chat.
Yeah, definitely drop where you zooming in from in the chat. Big up that energy. This is definitely an energy-based organization, so we're always happy to know where folks are calling from. Where you zooming in from, tag your friends, everybody to come and join us. So I am Jay. I'm the staff community organizer with IJ Action. I'm zooming in from the Central Valley of California. And so for tonight, what we have on tap is of course, welcome and introductions, which you've already done. We're going to get into some membership announcements. Then we'll dive into some committee updates. Next will be IJ Action organizational updates. Then we'll move on to our main program for the evening, which is election check-in. And we'll close you all out for the night after that and give you the rest of the night back. So that is what we have scheduled. And I see we have some folks zooming in here from LA, of course, in the building, Emiliano, I see you. Sophie's from East LA. We have a San Fernando Valley, Taina, the Valley stuff. And then we have what? Okay, Gabriel from the Bay Area. Okay, and then we have another San Fernando Valley. Okay, that's Stephanie. And then be familiar. Okay, we got San Diego in the building. I know where you're from, Andy. So yeah, just good to see everyone tonight, and let's get into it. So for your July membership announcements, I'm just going to take it off the cuff. We have Daniel L, who's a new member. We have Amber P, new member. Jared V, new member. Benjamin M, new member. Andrea D, new member. Crystal D, new member. Gary W, new member, and Kenny S, who are all new members. Welcome to IJ Action. So great to have you all here, be a part of this organizing space, and to be a part of this abolitionist movement here in California. So, also we'll like to tag that if you know any friends who are values aligned folks, especially if they're high energy and love to do this type of work or be around it, to please invite them to join us in membership. And as always, we want to highlight the members who have also completed new member orientation. And so this past month, Amber Phelps completed new member orientation. So congratulations to Amber with that. And that's one of the steps that we need to take in order to become active members here at IJ Action. And we also, at IJ Action, we like to practice transparency. So we like to let you all know that we did receive $431 on 20 contributions from members this past month. So thank everyone for contributing. And so we'd like to thank everyone for contributing. And we also want y'all to know that money is what we use to host events, also to fund organizing efforts and other things like that. So thank you all for helping us to be self-sustained, and a thriving membership will help us accomplish that. Next slide, please. And so while we're here talking about membership, I did want to briefly go over our membership structure here at IJ Action. As you can see with this wonderful visual that our communications team put together, on the right-hand side, we have our supportive member structure. And supportive members are folks who have completed their membership application and paid membership dues. They also participate in meetings and support committees whenever possible. On the left side, we have our active members. And active members are folks who have completed applications. They have paid their member dues. They completed new member orientation like Amber did this past month. They commit to attending monthly general meetings, sign up for at least one committee, and sign a member pledge. I know that sounds like a lot, but really all it boils down to is 2 hours of your time a month, aside from organizing in-person events whenever we have them. So we ask that folks select whichever structure is best for them. We do understand that we have students, we have parents, we have folks who are professionals, and everybody's capacities are different, but we do have those two different forms of support and to fit into your capacity as best. So just wanted to go over that for folks. And with that, we will move into our July org updates. And so one thing I wanted to highlight here at this general meeting is that our communications team has put together this amazing newsletter, which, sorry, I submitted one person in. This amazing newsletter, which has been emailed out to folks. So I don't know if you all have seen it in your inbox recently, but the IJ Action newsletter is packed with a summary and synopsis of things that are taking place throughout the month, as well as things that are upcoming. And we just wanted to shout out our comms team and the communications and fundraising committee for putting together this project and uplifting our work. And also just wanted to remind folks that if you do receive the newsletter, and if it happens to go in your spam folder, please remove it out your spam folder, so that way Google knows that it's a legitimate piece of correspondence coming from a legitimate source to other parties who are in agreement to receive it. So just wanted to shout out the communications team. And I don't know if Emiliano, if you want to take a second to say something about the newsletter.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, just expect it in your inbox. Check it out, because that's where you're going to get all our updates, everything that we're up to. And it's also great to share with other folks who may be interested in becoming a member. So, and inform them about what we got going on. So just yeah, check it out, share it. And yeah, and if you have any input, I mean, and you're a member and you're in the comms and fundraising committee, you know, join us the first Thursday of the month. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you for that, Emiliano. So yeah, this is a great project from the comms and fundraising committee. And I was very thoroughly impressed when I read it and saw it. It's just a really good compilation of so many things. And so again, with that, we're moving into our committee updates for this past month. And since I am the chair of the Membership and Outreach Committee, I will start off with the Membership and Outreach Committee update.
Give you blackberries, be quiet.
So, sorry. So the Membership and Outreach Committee, Membership and Outreach Committee is responsible for community organizing, outreach, training, and recruiting members to IJ Action. And for this past month, of course, we've been focused on recruiting new members, as always, hosting monthly member trainings, ACA 4 and other policy campaigns, and facilitating civic engagement presentations. So if anyone out there is interested in either working on policy campaigns and outreach, diving deeper into member trainings and helping to set those up or be a part of that work, are facilitating civic engagement presentations, we ask that you please tap in with the Membership and Outreach Committee. And we meet on the third Tuesday of each month from 6:30 to 7:30. And you can email me to get that link. Or if you sign up, if a new member signs up and they select Membership and Outreach Committee, I automatically send them the RSVP link. So yes, we're always looking for new members and folks who want to be involved in organizing, who wants to learn organizing, who wants to take that organizing to the next level. And so with that, I'll pass it over to Emiliano.
Cool. Hey, everybody. I'm Emiliano from the Comms and Fundraising. So we have, you know, we had our meeting last Thursday. You know, we have a social media challenge to get 100 members at the end of this month, and hopefully we can double that by August. And yeah, that was pretty much it. So we meet every first Thursday of the month, and you know, we got all kinds of stuff, you know, ready for y'all. So if you're in the comms and fundraising committee, join us first Thursday of the month at 6:30. We'll be sending out a communication. Back to you, Jay.
Yeah, thank you for that. I really appreciate that update. And also too, just want to tag that for folks who aren't actively involved in committee work, or if you're wondering how you could help to uplift the work that's being done here, Some things that you could do might be to just share out when you see posts coming from IJ Action, or if you see posts about the general meeting or other things, feel free to share that on your social media, repost it, put it to your story. And that way you can help move this work forward as well within capacity. And so with that, we're going to move it over into our next segment for the evening, which is our main presentation. And we're going to check your election readiness for 2024. So this is where we get into the nitty gritty. And it's where we talk about how we can practice abolition in action and show up in some policy campaigns. And so with that, I'll pass it over to our executive director, Taina Vargas, to delve into the technical side of so many wonderful things.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jay. And thank you everybody for being here this evening. I'm really excited to start talking about our 2024 elections. And y'all are probably wondering, it is July of 2023. Why are we talking about the elections in 2024? We are a civic engagement organization. We want to make sure that people who are impacted by incarceration are involved in the electoral process, are involved in making sure that we have a say at the ballot box in terms of who is representing us and which ballot measures take effect. So our motto here is stay ready so that we don't have to get ready. So we are going to spend a little bit of time this evening talking about how to get ready for the 2024 elections. We're gonna take a minute. I'm gonna open up a poll in a second to ask y'all some questions to kind of get the conversation going, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty. What we need to do to get ready for next year. So I see that there are 20 folks here. Oops. There are 20 folks here. So I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll. If you've never done a poll on Zoom before, I'm going to launch it. You're going to see something pop up on your screen. And this poll has 4 questions. The first 3 questions are you just select one answer. And then the 4th question is going to be check all that apply. And yeah, just want everybody who is able to, especially if you're in front of a computer, please answer. If you're doing something like driving right now and listening to this meeting, please do not put yourself in danger and answer the questions. And there's no, well, for one of them, there is a right answer, but it's not like a test or anything like that. This is really just to get folks engaged in the conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll. I'll give folks a few, maybe like a minute or so to go ahead and respond to the questions, but you all should see it now. So the first question, and this is the only one where there's a correct and an incorrect answer, is what date is the California primary election in 2024? Is it March 5th, April 9th, or June 4th of next year? And then I'd like y'all to answer, are you currently registered to vote? Yes, no, or you're not sure? And then the third question is, did you vote in the 2022 primary and general elections? Yes, no, not sure, it was a long time ago, you don't remember, or were you not eligible to vote at that time? And the last question, you can check all that apply. So what issues make voting a challenge for you? Are you unsure of how to register to vote? Are you unsure if you're eligible? Are you confused on which candidates and ballot measures to vote for? Confused about the voting process, such as filling out your ballot, submitting your ballot, etc., or you feel like you don't have enough time to research your votes? So I see the answers are starting to come in. I will share the results in a second, but yeah, feel free to answer to the best of your ability. It looks like most folks have participated so far, so I'll give it another little bit.
And if you're driving, please do not try to answer again.
Yeah, all right. Looks like almost everyone has participated. Okay. I'll give it another 20 seconds or so to see if we get any last minute responses. And then once I share the results of the poll, if you want to chime in and offer a little bit of background about any of your answers, please feel free to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. Looks like we got most folks responding here. All right, so I'll share the results. So everybody should be able to see the results now. All right. So what date is the California primary election in 2024? Most people got it right. It is on March 5th of 2024. Now, if you're wondering, if you're thinking back and you're like, wait a minute, but in 2022, the primary election was in June, you're correct. In California, we have this weird system that doesn't make any sense. In a presidential election year, like 2024, our primary is in March. California's primary used to always be in June, but then the state of California felt like we were able to weigh in a little bit too late for the presidential nomination process. So they moved our elections, our primary elections up to March, but only for presidential years. For non-presidential years, such as 2022, the primary election is still in June. So that's another reason that we wanted to have this, this theme for the meeting today, to let folks know if you're thinking that the primary election is not until June of 2024, that's not correct. It's going to be in March of 2024. So we want to get ready a little bit earlier. Are you currently registered to vote? All right, looks like most folks are registered to vote. If you're not registered to vote for whatever reason, hopefully we can support you with that. Number 3, did you vote in the 2022 primary and general elections? 86% of folks said yes. 7% said no, 7% said was not eligible to vote. So hopefully whoever wasn't eligible then is eligible now. As a reminder, with the passage of Prop 17 in 2020, if you are on parole, yes, you are eligible to vote. So if you're home, if you're in the community, and as long as you're 18 or older, a citizen and a resident of California, you can vote. So please do. All right. And last question, what issues make voting a challenge for you? All right, we have one person say unsure of how to register. 8 people say confused on which candidates and ballot measures to vote for. I think that's all of us, honestly. Nobody's confused on the voting process, so that's great. And not enough time to research your votes. Yeah, I feel like that's real, right? It's so much research. So before I actually get into the main presentation, does anybody want to, you can go ahead and raise your digital hand. Does anybody want to weigh in on any of their responses, like whether or not they're registered, why, any of the issues that come up for them in making the decision to vote? Go ahead, Stephanie.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Oh, really? I was just asking if anybody wanted to elaborate on any of the answers that you offered in the poll.
Actually, yeah, I do have a question because I feel like this has changed throughout the years, so I'm not really sure. So I know that before, I'm not sure, before you had to register as a Democrat in order to vote as in order to vote in the primary for Democrats. Is that, and so if you were like registered as an independent, you couldn't vote in the primary. Is that still the case?
I believe it is. So just to clarify, it's actually up to the political party. So it's the Democratic Party or Republican Party that can decide whether or not you can vote in their presidential primaries if you're not registered with a political party. I believe that the Democratic Party will allow you to vote if you're registered as no party preference. And again, that's no party preference, not independent, because American Independent is a political party, which is like a right-wing political party. So sometimes people confuse independent with no party preference. So if you don't want to put a political party, then you put no party preference. You don't put American Independent. It's different at the national level. It's weird and confusing. I believe that's true. I'm hopefully not giving incorrect information, but I think if you're no party preference, then you can register in the Democratic Party. But you can vote in the Democratic primary. But I believe if you're registered as a Republican, that you cannot vote in the presidential primary. For a Democrat, I should say. Are there any other thoughts or questions before we move on? Okay, and I see that there's a question in the chat, and I'm just gonna go ahead and say, like, while I'm presenting, it's hard for me to keep an eye on the chat. But Gabriel said, I've just been released from incarceration. Where do I go to register? You can do that. If you want to do a paper registration form, you can, and you can do that in most government offices such as the DMV or any post office. They'll have paper voter registration forms. However, the easiest way to register to vote is online. So maybe, I don't know, Jay or somebody from staff, if you can drop the voter registration link in the chat. It's actually really easy to register to vote online. And then maybe like a week or so after you register to vote online, you should get something in the mail letting you know that you are registered and that you're confirmed. Yep, no problem. All right, and I'll go ahead and get us started. All right, so as we mentioned, the primary election is on March 5th, 2024, which is 238 days away. It seems like a long ways away, but I don't know if anybody is like even remotely involved in advocacy work at this point, you're probably already being bombarded by candidates who are running for office. IJ Action has already been approached by a couple of candidates, you know, asking for an endorsement. You know, the election cycle like really is 24/7, 365 days a year. So again, we just want to make sure that folks are paying attention and that you're ready for March 5th. So here's what I'm going to cover in our quick election check-in for this evening. I'm going to go through voter registration status, letting folks know how to check their status, some key dates and deadlines. I'm going to talk a little bit about the IJ Action voter guide. So especially for folks who are new to IJ Action, if you're not familiar with our voter guides, I'm going to talk about this a little bit. And then we will also touch base on putting together a voting plan. All right, so again, so for your voter registration status, one, are you registered to vote? You can check your voter registration status at the link here, which is voterstatus.sos.ca.gov. If you're wondering what SOS stands for, that stands for Secretary of State. It's the Secretary of State of California that is responsible for managing all the voter registrations, ballots going out, and all of that. So yeah, check your status. If you're not sure if you're registered to vote, if it's been a while since you've registered, you can go ahead and visit that website and check. But another thing that folks are often not aware of or need to be reminded of is that you need to re-register to vote if certain information about you has changed. So if you have changed your legal name for any reason, marriage, divorce, etc., you need to re-register to vote with your new legal name. If you have moved and changed your address, you need to re-register to vote. Every time you move, you need to have your voter registration updated to reflect your updated address. One, so that you get your ballot in the mail. All California voters get their ballots in the mail. And then two, you want to make sure that you're able to vote for the appropriate candidates in the appropriate jurisdiction. Your address determines which member of Congress you vote for, which congressional district you live in, which California State Senate district you live in, which state assembly district you live in, your county board of supervisors, your city council members. All of those things are very intricately defined by your address. So anytime you move, make sure you re-register to vote, and you can easily do that online. Just takes a couple minutes. Or to Stephanie's question earlier, if you've changed your political party affiliation, then you have to re-register to vote as well. So if, for example, you were registered as no party preference, but you want to register, you know, for the Democratic Party or whichever party to make sure that you're able to vote in the presidential primary of your choice, then go ahead and re-register and update your political party affiliation. But yeah, check your status, make sure that you're good. I know that when we were doing some civic engagement workshops last year, we encountered quite a few folks who thought that they were registered to vote and were not, or were registered with the incorrect information. So especially if you haven't voted in a while, check your status to make sure everything is up to date. And again, if folks have questions, like please feel free to just go ahead and raise your hand, and I can call on you for questions. And I'm just looking at the chat to make sure that I'm not missing anything. Thanks to folks who've been dropping links in the chat. All right, so here are some important dates to pay attention to for the primary in 2024. So on February 5th of next year, all counties will begin to mail out ballots. So even though election day isn't until March 5th, most counties will start to mail out their ballots as early as February 5th. So it's even a month earlier than the 238 days that I just talked about. February 20th is the last day to register to vote for the March 5th election. So yeah, make sure that you're registered to vote well in advance of that. Something else that I will say is that in California, we do have same day voter registration. And I'll say that again, in California, we do have same day on the spot voter registration. So if for any reason, you know, not y'all, because y'all have enough time to prepare, but if there's anybody who you know who for whatever reason was not able to register to vote before the February 20th deadline, they can go to a polling place in person, register on the spot, and then vote. However, if you do that, you'll be voting provisionally, which means that it's conditional. So you'll be given a special ballot. You'll be able to vote conditionally. And what will happen is the Secretary of State's office will check all of your information before they actually process your ballot. So that ballot will take a little bit more time. And if there's any errors that were made in your voter registration, then your vote won't count. So even though you can register to vote on the same day, we definitely encourage folks to register well before the voter registration deadline to make sure you get your ballot on time and are able to vote on time. February 24th is when early voting centers open in most counties. So if you, for whatever reason, don't want to fill out your ballot and submit it in the mail, you can go and vote in person, and you can do that as early as February 24th. So between February 24th and March 5th, you can actually vote in person. You can also fill out your your ballot, your vote by mail ballot, and drop it off at an early voting center. You can also drop it off in any mailbox, no postage required, or you can drop it off at a secure voter drop box. When you get your ballot in the mail, it'll give you the locations of all the voter drop boxes and early voting centers near you. That's what I preferred to do. I fill out my ballot as soon as possible and I drop it off at a voter drop box. I'm just like a little paranoid and worried that something will happen in the mail. The voter drop boxes are secure. They're emptied by county voter registrar staff at the end of every day. So that's an easy way to make sure that your ballot is turned in and counted. And then of course, election day is March 5th, 2024. Polls close at 8 p.m. So that's the last day for you to get your ballots in. And vote by mail ballots must be postmarked on or before election day and have to be received by March 12th, 2024. So these are important dates to pay attention to. If you want to check out more information on any of these dates, you can visit the Secretary of State's website, www.sos.ca.gov. And again, y'all, if you have any questions, feel free to just go ahead and raise your hand and I'll call on you. Voter guides. So yeah, something that the folks talked about is like, we actually don't know what to vote for. There are way too many candidates on this ballot. Maybe you've received like some campaign mail or seen a commercial from them, but you really don't know what they're about. So that's where IJ Action and other nonprofit organizations come in to support by providing voter guides. So voter guides provide background information on candidates and ballot measures. The IJ Action Voter Guide is the only abolitionist guide created by people impacted by incarceration. So in our voter guides, we cover the statewide candidates. So that means candidates who are running for state administrative offices, such as governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, so the person running the voting, attorney general, all of those state constitutional offices. We cover those candidates. We cover candidates running for State Board of Equalization. So that's a board that decides what happens with all of our property taxes. It's an obscure board that people are not really familiar with, but we do cover those candidates. And then we also cover all of the candidates who are running for state legislative office. So candidates running for state Senate and state assembly are all covered in our voter guide. We also cover statewide ballot propositions as well and give our recommendation on whether to vote yes or no. on the state ballot propositions. And then what we actually, like the content that we actually cover for each of these candidates are the voting records of legislators in office. So if there's a candidate who's running who's an incumbent, meaning that they're already in office, we select a certain number of criminal justice reform bills and analyze their voting record. So that will be in our voter guide. So we'll let you know like how many good bills they voted yes on, or if they voted no on them, or if they just chose not to vote. That information is going to be in our voter guide. At the end of this year, we're actually also going to be putting out for the first time a legislative scorecard. We're going to be scoring and like, giving legislators a grade in terms of, how much they have voted in alignment with our abolitionist values. So keep an eye out for that. We will also write about their public safety platforms. So what is the candidate saying about funding for police? What are they saying about decarceration? What are they saying about criminalizing things such as substance use and houselessness and things like that? Whatever information the candidate has said publicly, we will have that information in our voter guide. And if it can't be found anywhere, if it's not on their website, if they haven't made any public statements, we will also let you know in the voter guide that they haven't made any public statements on this. And then the last thing that we put in our voter guide is whether or not the candidate receives money from law enforcement. So if they're receiving money from the CCPOA, which is the California Correctional Peace Officers Association, which is the union for the COs for the prisons, if they have received money from the district attorneys, from probation, highway patrol, local police departments, we will put which departments they accepted campaign contributions from. Because of course at IJ Action, we believe that candidates should not be taking money from the cops. So we are going to be putting all of that information out there in our voter guide. Look for our primary voter guide, which is going to be dropping in February 2024. We usually try to align the release of our voter guide with the release of the ballots. So when ballots drop, our voter guide drops as well. It's available in print and online in our website. We have the link here for our voter guides from the November election last year and the June election for last year. So if you want to take a look at what our previous voter guides have looked like, you definitely can, but keep an eye out for our upcoming voter guides. That being said, there's a lot of candidates who we don't cover. So you'll notice, even our voter guide, it's like thick, it's usually like a couple hundred pages long, and we cover a bunch of candidates. We're only covering the statewide office. You'll still have federal offices you're going to be voting on. You'll still have city offices you're voting on, county offices that you're voting on. And those unfortunately are not going to be covered in our voter guide. There are 58 counties in California, more cities than I could possibly name. So it's not possible for us to cover every single candidate in the state. So definitely encourage you to look up other progressive voter guides in your area. Some good voter guides that I use, well, based on like, just find a voter guide, that aligns with your values. You can just Google, progressive voter guides. Whoever you think is going to be in alignment with your values is usually like a good place to start. All right, and I also wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about candidate endorsements as well. And this is one thing that makes Initiate Justice Action unique. Sometimes you can get a voter guide from a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and they'll just kind of offer just like general and generic information on the candidates. They won't, weigh in and let you know which candidates they think are better or worse, which ones are more or less in alignment with values, because 501c3 nonprofits have limits. They're not allowed to be partisan. They're not allowed to speak on their opinion for any candidate. But Initiate Justice Action, we're a 501c4 nonprofit. We absolutely can make endorsements. So endorsements refer to public declarations of support for a particular candidate by individuals, organizations, or influential figures. So we're an organization that does have a very robust candidate endorsement process. And we did that for the first time during our general election last year. So what IJ Action's endorsement process looks like is we send out questionnaires to candidates who we think we, may potentially support, who may be in alignment with our values. If the candidate replies to our questionnaire, then we invite them to an interview. And this is another, call to becoming an Initiate Justice Action member, because members get to come to the interviews, they get to read the questionnaire responses, and they get to submit questions to the candidates. So last year, I want to say that we interviewed 10 statewide candidates. We made endorsements for 8 candidates, and of the 8 candidates who we endorsed, 6 of them won their races. And these are the ones who won right here from left to right. It's Senator Caroline Menjivar, who represents the East San Fernando Valley, Senator Lola Smallwood Cuevas, who represents a lot of South and West Los Angeles, Assembly Member Mia Bonta, who represents the Oakland area, and then Assembly Member Lee and Assembly Member Calra, who both represent different parts of San Jose, and then Assembly Member Isaac Bryan, who represents Central and West LA, and also is the author of ACA 4, our legislation to restore voting rights to people in prison. And I think almost every single person here, I think except Caroline Menjivar, are also co-authors of ACA 4. So there's a direct correlation between the candidates who we decided to endorse and the ones who are authoring or co-authoring legislation that's a priority for us. So we do provide endorsements, but also be aware that other entities provide endorsements as well. So other politicians, celebrities, advocacy groups, unions, and newspapers all provide endorsements, and that can be helpful for you in deciding, which candidates you want to support. If, for example, you see a police union is endorsing a candidate, that might not be a candidate that you want to support. But if you see, an organization like IJ Action, or a really left organization, or a labor union endorsing a candidate, then that might be more likely to be in alignment with your values. If there are more left-leaning newspapers that are supporting a candidate versus a more right-leaning newspaper that's supporting a candidate, that can help influence your vote as well. But go ahead, Jay, I see your hand up.
Yes, our wonderful new member, Andrea Garcia Ponce de Leon, has a question in the chat. And that is there a forum or other place where suggestions or intel on legislators can be included for scorecard to be considered? So places where members can help submit inside information on electeds.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So for the scorecard, objectively, all that we're looking at is their voting records on certain bills that we're looking at. So there's going to be 2 categories. We're going to look at their voting records on a select number of bills that we're evaluating. And if they're an author or a co-author of specific good or bad legislation, then we're going to be analyzing that as well in like an extra credit section that we're going to do on the scorecard. So there's really not like any intel or anything like that that needs to be offered in terms of the scorecard. For the voter guide, that is a place where we're going to be, including a little bit more information. So I would say you can, maybe email Jay if you have like any information that you would like to share about a legislator. But I will say we're going to make sure that it's something that's like objective and verifiable. We're not going to include information in a voter guide like, oh, I had a meeting with this person and they were rude to me or something like that. It's going to be things that are objectively on their voting record, public positions that they have taken on various issues, their professional background, such as, like what, offices they've held in the past, maybe like how they have voted in the past. So if there's any like, good public information that you want to share, you can go ahead and share it with Jay. And then I see you have a follow-up question. Would you endorse an IJ Action member? So if we have a member who is running for an office, like a statewide office, we would definitely consider them, and assuming that that member goes through the process, such as completing the questionnaire, completing the interview, and then our active members will have the opportunity to vote on that candidate. If the candidate is an active member, then they would just recuse themselves from that vote. But if they are a candidate who goes through our process, otherwise, then we would definitely consider endorsing that candidate. But, and I guess I should say a little bit more about like our overall endorsement process, so I can back up a little bit. So what our endorsement process looks like, as I mentioned, we send out questionnaires to the candidates. If they complete the questionnaire and return it to us, then we invite that candidate to an interview. During the interview, all active members are eligible to participate in the Zoom interview. So active members are members who have completed a membership application, have completed an orientation, have paid their dues if they are paying their dues. Yeah, Roberto, thanks for letting us know that you're not running. Dang it. But active members are people who pay their dues if they are dues paying members, and have attended at least 3 out of 4 general meetings. So we do, keep track of attendance for these meetings. Jay, lets folks know like when endorsements are coming up. We recently ratified our platform. So at the time of like ratification for the platform, he emailed the members to be like, okay, here are those of you who've attended 3 out of 4 meetings, who are otherwise in good standing. You are considered an active member and you're eligible to vote on our platform process. So same thing, probably like maybe like a month or 2 before we start the endorsement process, we'll reach out to members and let folks know like who's active and who isn't. We don't have capacity to endorse in the primary process, unfortunately. We just don't have like staff time, financial resources, and things like that. But in the general election in November of next year, we will be doing endorsements. So we'll let folks know like which members are eligible to participate in the endorsement process. If you are an active member, then we'll let you know, and we'll let you know that you can submit questions in email form to our staff and board ahead of time for the candidates. And we, the staff and board will decide, because we come up with our own internal questions as well, which questions make sense to ask the candidates during the interview, but all members can, attend and watch the interview process. And then what'll happen after we complete the interview process is the staff and the board will meet and they will make recommendations for candidate endorsements. And then we will take our recommendations to the full active membership. And then the full active membership gets to vote on the candidates. So they can either vote to approve the recommendations the staff and the board have made, or if they don't want to approve all of them, they can pull certain candidates from our consent calendar. We can have a discussion on those candidates, and then the full membership votes on that candidate in particular. So we have a pretty thorough process that we go through. And we will be doing that for next year. Yeah, and I know Andy, and I think there's a couple other folks here who are part of our endorsement process last year. Votes are, we do them through Zoom, through a Zoom poll. So it's an anonymous Zoom poll, just like the one that we did earlier here. All right. Are there any other questions? And again, please raise your hand to ask questions. It's hard for me to keep track of the chat. Do folks have any other questions, thoughts, or are there any members who participated in our endorsement process last year who want to share? If not, I can move on. Okay, great. Oh, go ahead, Andy.
It was a great experience, and it gives everybody a voice and a chance to speak their mind. So I really loved it and can't wait to be part of it again, especially with, even if we didn't get to ask the question, we got to hear, and a lot of the questions that I had in mind were asked anyways.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, actually, I think last time, I don't think that we got any email questions ahead of time. So again, just want to like reiterate for members that if you do have a question, please email them ahead of time. And again, the reason that we ask for that, instead of just having everybody bombard the candidates with questions during the interview, is like one time. The interviews are only 25 minutes long. So we want to make sure that we're able to ask all the questions that we need to ask on time. 2, our staff and board usually like will cover a lot of things like already. So if there are any questions that are duplicative, like we don't want like, the same questions to be asked multiple times. But again, yeah, definitely encourage members to submit questions in writing ahead of time for us to ask during the process. Go ahead, Roberto.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, like, when you're part of that process, you really get to see, like, get a feel out of the candidates, like how they respond to certain questions that are asked. So you kind of get a little gist of like where their minds and like just really like what they're really fighting for, if they're real or if they're not. I think it was fun for me. It was pretty cool just to get to know them like I feel like on a more personal level, because some of them were pretty cool and they responded pretty quick, and or some of them were real thoughtful, and some were just that bank they just didn't have an answer. And so that was the whole process was pretty cool. So I think if you haven't experienced it, you should.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the reason that we do this is because these people are accountable to us, right? Like a lot of other organizations are doing these endorsement processes. So like labor unions, police unions, newspapers, they're putting these candidates through a really rigorous process. And people impacted by incarceration, and specifically abolitionist people impacted by incarceration, should also be asking these folks questions. The first question that we asked them in the questionnaire last time was, do you consider yourself an abolitionist? And we had a couple of candidates who were very clear, like, yes, like Ash Kalra and Alex Lee were very clear, like, yes, I'm an abolitionist. I think Lola said yes too. And then we had some other candidates who were like, kind of like went around it, but we're like, yes, but I support all of the, policy proposals that are, within abolition. Now that we have our abolitionist policy platform, we have something in writing that we're going to be able to share with candidates. And a question next time can be, have you read our abolitionist policy platform? Do you have any questions or concerns? What policies in it do you support? What policies in it do you oppose? So this is like really an opportunity for system impacted people to be putting this question to folks. And again, we are the only organization led by system impacted people in California that's doing this. We are the only abolitionist organization in California that's doing this. So if you're not already a member, become a member. If you're a member who's been a little bit inconsistent and hasn't been coming to meetings and you're not considered an active member yet, come to meetings. That's another reason we're talking about this now, giving folks like, the heads up to be like, hey, if you want to participate in this process next year, stay consistent, come to our meetings, stay checked in so that you can be part of this process. And I am gonna like offer like a small plug. If you're a member, our member training next week on Thursday, the 20th, is going to be on candidate endorsements. So we're going to go into this in a lot more detail next week as well. All right, election check and voting plan. So now that we talked about, our voter guides, our candidate endorsement process, who's eligible to register to vote and all of that fun stuff, make sure that you have your plan together. So go ahead and check out your voter registration status. Make sure that you are registered to vote. If you are registered to vote, I highly, highly recommend signing up for ballot tracks if you're not already signed up for that. I know a lot of folks here probably already are signed up for it, but if you're not familiar with what it is, ballot tracks is the California state ballot tracking system. So if somebody, maybe staff, if you didn't already, drop the ballot tracks link in the chat, you can sign up and you get updates. You can get text message or email notifications for when your vote by mail ballot is mailed to you. Once you complete your ballot and submit it, it'll let you know once your ballot is received, and it'll let you know once your ballot is counted. Sometimes folks turn their ballots in and don't know what happens after that, but with ballot tracks, you can confirm that your ballot is received. You can confirm that it was counted. And if for whatever reason your ballot is rejected, like a bad signature, or maybe you didn't fill in the bubbles correctly or something like that, ballot tracks will let you know, and it'll give you the opportunity to correct your ballot. Go ahead, Andy, I see your hand.
If I did it last time I voted, last time you had access, you recommended for us to do it. I did it. Now that I changed my address and had to re-register again, do I have to do this again too?
That's a great question. I believe you do. So if I were you, I would just go ahead and go to ballot tracks, re-sign up and see if you actually do have to change it. I think that you might. That's a good question.
Okay, thank you.
Definitely encourage folks to use voter guides to inform your vote. So of course, there's the IJ Action Voter Guide, but there's a lot of other really good organizational voter guides out there as well. Also encourage folks to vote early. Your ballot gets to you 4 weeks before election day. Vote as soon as you can, because I know, or at least open up your ballot and start thinking about it as soon as you can. Because I know, like for me, I have voted in every single election since I turned 18 and never fails. Every time I open up my ballot, there's some candidate, some office, some ballot measure on there that I am really unsure about and need to spend a lot of time doing research on. So yeah, open up your ballot early so that you have enough time to look for voter guides, so that you have enough time to do your own research and decide which candidates and ballot measures you want to vote for. And lastly, encourage your friends and family to do the same, right? Like our voices matter, they're important, but we are all organizers as well. So we can organize our friends and family members to get them the correct information that they need to empower them to vote. And again, the reason that, IJ Action even exists is because, people of color, people impacted by incarceration are historically marginalized groups. Like historically speaking, and even, in the current sense, we vote, like, people of color vote at lower rates than white folks. People who are impacted by incarceration vote at lower rates because they're unsure about what their, voter eligibility is. And, marginalized folks, a lot of times we feel like voting isn't for us, right? Like it doesn't matter, our voice isn't going to make a difference. So like, why even try? But this is why, we exist. Like these decisions are happening at the top. These candidates are voting on legislation, whether we participate or not. So it's really important for those of us who have been directly impacted by incarceration, who hold abolitionist values, to hold these candidates accountable, to make our voices heard at the polls, and to mobilize our friends and family to do the same as well. So action items, become an IJ Action member. Like that's the easiest way that you can be part of this process, specifically the candidate endorsement process. If you're not already a member, please complete your application. If you are a member and you haven't been as active, please, step up your activity so that you can be considered an active member and participate in our endorsement process. And members will be eligible to participate in our endorsement, or in our candidate endorsement training next week. So that'll be Thursday, July 20th, same time at 6:30. I know that Jay's been sending out reminders for that if you haven't already RSVP'd. So, please go ahead and RSVP if you're already a member. If you're not a member, you can become a member and then sign up for the meeting. Just a reminder, our next general meeting is Tuesday, August 8th, 2023, same time. Please RSVP now. I think somebody's going to drop the link in the chat and get ready to vote in 2024. That's all from me. I think I've taken, exactly the right amount of time, finished right when I was supposed to. So Jay, I'll pass it back to you. Or if folks have questions, please feel free to raise your hand. But otherwise, Jay, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, so thank you, Tanya, for all that wonderful information. You did such a good job. And then, of course, our members come through always on time with the dope questions and always, informed and such intuitive thought processes. So thank you all for, again, having those dope questions, having those thought processes and thinking about how we could dismantle this system of harm and turn it into a system that supports folks who are like us. And so all the links are in the chat. Again, for we ask that folks, who are on this call that aren't members, we ask that you please hit the link and complete that member application. Once you do, you'll get an email from myself, and I will also email you with next steps, and then we'll be able to link on a personal level and discuss what IJ Action is about, membership process. That is, if you choose to complete new member orientation. And secondly, we ask that folks just please hit the link in the chat and RSVP right now for the next general meeting. It's always a lot easier to do it now. And that's why we send you all these links, pretty often. So that way folks can have that opportunity to get registered ahead of time. So you're not, waiting to the last minute, get stifled, get busy, and kind of forget to be in these important spaces. So again, it's just so wonderful to be in these spaces and to be in community with everyone and to be amongst movers and shakers, folks who aren't afraid to flip that light switch and expose the crazy stuff that's going on in our legislative process, and who want to make a change. And so that said, we ask that all members please attend our member training on Thursday on candidate endorsements. It's going to be very informative, and also it's going to be a packed agenda, and we could continue to grow this knowledge and have some great conversations about why we as impacted people need to be in these spaces, not why we should, but why we need to be in these spaces. And the reason for that is because if we're not in these spaces, then other folks who are aligned against us will definitely be in those spaces. When we are in the Capitol building, those sheriff associations, those police associations, the CCOPA, all those folks leeching off of our tax dollars who are causing harm are in those spaces, and they're telling lies. And so that's why we need to be in these spaces, and we need to be providing feedback. We need to be giving lived experience. We need to be giving learned experience, and we need to be up at the table during the conversation so we can represent ourselves and our communities. And so we're going to get that link in the chat one more time for member training on candidate endorsements. And with that, we'll give you all the rest of your night back. And it's Taco Tuesday, y'all, so enjoy. I got my tacos waiting, about to have a good night with the fam bam, and it's so good to see everybody on this call. I really appreciate everyone. And let's continue to build. Let's build collectively, and let's abolish these systems of harm.
Yeah.
Feel free to unmute and say goodbyes or whatever.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Good night.
you.
It's great
Bye,
seeing you.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.